Hello out there. Why is this old man coming to you? Trying to teach. Well, let's consider it sharing. I don't so much believe in beliefs. I believe in processes that help us educate our beliefs and improve them. What brings us together is the true spiritual path. And when it's seen as a form of process, then we can begin to come together. And how do we do that? We come together by finding what we agree upon, that which overlaps, all of our different beliefs, and then expand that to what complements our own belief from others, and sharing that. So I'm not here to preach what you should believe. I'm here to talk about process that brings us together. Now that is a kind of faith that if we come together, everyone benefits. I do ask for that. In order to do that, what we need to do is to understand what exactly does bring us together. Well, that's human need. And the perspectives that we use to meet those human needs, individually and socially. So let's delve into the social aspect. Well, what helps us to meet human needs? There are three basic areas of perspective that I promote. And those are creative, objective, and empathetic. These kinds of perspectives bring us together, and they are also the basic foundation of the virtue in us, from empathy, goodness, from objectivity, truth, and from creativity, this ability to see things from many different perspectives and make some kind of sense out of it. That's art. The ability to appreciate the good in ourselves and others and in our world, and in the worlds of others. So, this thing is common. It brings us all together. Some say this is a gift from whatever their concept of God is. Some say, well, it's just a human trait. Well, it could be all of the above, or it could be, But one thing we do know is that these social characteristics, or traits, or perspectives, were important to our evolution. These are connected to survival. So You really don't need to postulate much more than that. It's your option to do so. But, the closest you'll come to what anyone would call the highest, the ideal, or God, or however you wish to call it, would be a process of developing these abilities. These abilities are shadowed or mirrored in emotional intelligence understandings. From objectivity, we get self-control. From the perspective of creativity, we get self-awareness, seeing ourselves from different perspectives. And from empathy, we get empathy. Those are the three pillars of emotional intelligence. IQ is how well we, consider a number of perspectives and bring them together. And one thing for sure is that everyone's important in the process. And why? Because those of us who are middle of the road, perhaps, are both a challenge to others to give them this opportunity to grow and to help us, and for us to help them. And some of those who are the least among us, it's all about our helping them. And that's good for us and them. And who knows? There could be things, great benefits from this. And it's the same thing when we communicate with those who are more advanced in one way or another than we are. We benefit the one and the other. This creates a kind of family of humanity in which we lessen violence, and we increase understanding, which is what was found in peer studies of children when they implemented emotional intelligence classes in the schools that they studied. It lessened violence by 10%. And it increased the academic performance by 10% as well, which is a little more than, it's understanding of a certain kind. So, all of these things, they're woven together, the things that I'm talking about. In your own particular religion, what is a language that unites all religions is the power of myth. And myth is intricately connected to what has helped humanity grow and work together. It's common ground. And behind those mythological symbols, there's common ground and understanding. And the great Joseph Campbell talked in detail about this sort of thing. He was a mythologist, a professional in that area. So, what happens when we look into the mythology, the code and our belief systems that guide us to greater understanding and growth. Growth in what? Empathy, creativity, objectivity, the virtues. Once we begin to understand those elements in our own beliefs, then we can see comparisons and other beliefs through understanding mythology. It doesn't mean that mythology doesn't have some truth to it. It has a great deal of truth. It's a certain kind of truth. Now, how do we come together with process? Well, when you come together with process, what happens is, if you're into personal growth, which how can you not be? If you want social growth, you have to be interested in personal growth, and vice versa. They are intricately connected. Social change progress brings about progress in individuals, and individual progress can bring about great social change and progress. We've seen that many times. But what do you get when you delve into an introspective process? This is what's you often refer to as mysticism, the good part of mysticism, that introspective element. And over in India, they call this kind of introspection yoga. But it's introspection is common thing around the world. So deep introspection will consider these social perspectives of empathy, objectivity, and creativity. And it has to do with, that process is about connecting to those things within yourself. And then understanding how you change and how others change and what brings us all together. So, is it also healing? Yes, it can be. It can be very healing. Looking at those processes, it's very emotionally healing. And looking deeper into introspective processes, we can see some degree of physical help. Who are the great yogis that we have? The great mystics of today? Well, urologists, psychologists, those in the field of medicine. These are great yogis, actually. Our version today. So far from not respecting modern science and development, this kind of process embraces it. And we understand that. So, are you a mystic? Are you a yogi? Well, if you practice introspection, you are a yogi, a mystic. And everybody does this to some degree. So it's kind of like you're a poet and didn't know it. Everyone's a yogi or a mystic. They may not have made a process out of it, but elements of it are going to be there. Self-reflection. Everybody self-reflects, correct? Well, there may be some, but no. If you're a human being, that would be extremely rare. Maybe if you're brain dead, you're not self-reflective. But then you're gone. But anyway, how does this view, what are these different connections in an introspective outlook? Well, connecting to your own objectivity is becoming your own counselor. That part of you which is more objective, communicating to that part of you which I call the kid, the dramatic self that's experiencing the various elements of life more directly. The one inside you that is taking the journey. In neurology, that would be called the conscious agency self. So, communicating with objectivity means you become your own counselor. And you're helping yourself to do what? To take care of anxieties and needs from the present looking into the future. And when you're having that kind of dialogue in yourself, which is very powerful if you do it out loud, that means when you talk about the past, you're talking about it as the past. Very important point. But your main focus is, where am I today? And where do I need to go in the future? And how should I view my future? Right? So if you're communicating with your empathy, that means you're communicating to everybody. People you care about, people who care about you, or people you should care about, or who should care about you, which is, at some point, you realize is everybody. So, how do you do that? Well, you talk, especially out loud, to people that you care about, or who you should care more about, or to people who care about you, or maybe some who should have cared more about you. And you have that experience. But what is that about? That takes you to a point of experiencing the past that you're dealing with. You're dealing with real relationships that are fed to you by your memory, and it heals anxieties from how you experience yourself to be in the present, to what brought you to where you are. The interesting element to this process is that it can be very healing. It helps you enter a journey. And to understand this journey into your past, into this healing, of the past. This coping with anxieties still in the past. Well, it's not a journey in which you're looking for negative things. It's just a journey into deeper empathy, but it does connect you to an experience of what actually happened to you. And what those things that happen to you around which there's great anxiety are times in which you were helpless to get needs met. And those were, especially vital needs. So when you connect to these, the needs in you through empathy, you come to a point where you're growing stronger, and those times of helplessness present themselves. And what happens when you feel those needs that you were once helpless to deal with? You're coming into contact with what helped you survive at that time, which was, how do you relieve the anxieties when you are confronted with helplessness? Well, you turn it into something symbolic. Symbolic needs. These symbolic needs are forms of addiction. Maybe you eat to feel comfort. Maybe you eat too much. Maybe you talk too much. Things that I did. It's a lot of things. And these things also divide you away from who you really are. Because you begin to see, not only as you become more symbolic in your life, which helps to save your life when you're truly helpless, the more that engulfs you, the more you have lost who you really are. The one with those real needs. So that you can't grieve these needs which have been symbolized are needs that are actually in the past. Again, in the past. They're in the past. But you can't grieve them and let them go until you felt them in their original helplessness. You talk about it, you're aware of it, that doesn't heal you. You yell and scream, bang on the wall. That doesn't help. Whatever happens when you feel them and they're helpless, and feel your helplessness in that situation, that's what's healing. It's a reliving of the thing in a way that cuts through the helplessness, that unlearns the helplessness. So it means that you will have moments where you will cry out in this reliving for those things that you were helpless to get. And what does that mean? Well, when you cry out, or it doesn't necessarily have to be cry, it's a matter of feeling it and expressing it, usually with tears. And you know, you were not empowered to do that once upon a time. So, but when you do that, you unlearn the helplessness, and it puts you in touch with those needs as they really existed for you. Okay? That means you can grieve them and let them go. And this is important. Why? Because until you've grieved and let go of these things, you can't forgive, not from your heart. So forgiving others, that's the next step. Feeling what happened in its in your original helplessness, so that you can connect with the real needs of the past, and then realizing these are losses, grieve them and let them go. And then in that process finding that you are able to forgive. That doesn't mean you trust people that have harmed you. It means that you forgive them. It's something you do for yourself. You forgive them because you're able to, and because you see that perhaps they themselves were in a bit of a delusion and never really saw who you were, because they didn't know who they were. But that realization comes about as we feel remorse, the most painful thing of all to feel, when the hurt in us, that symbolic need, those addictions in us have hurt others. But when you have felt that remorse, you know, and shed those tears, you are less that person who did those things. You are becoming a different person. That different person is who you were meant to be, your real self. Okay? So at the point of remorse, you have a lot of realizations, and you realize that everybody who harms others, that's all, that they have to go through this same journey, and that the journey is hard, difficult. It's very hard to feel things that once we were helpless to feel, or to express. You know, it's not just difficult. I mean, it was life-saving. The anxiety could have made us very sick, or ended our life. So that medicine, which some call neurosis, that medicine saved you once. So getting rid of the medicine is really hard, because you've learned it as this, it's become a survival memory. So everything inside you doesn't want to do that, so that's where a therapist can be helpful, helping you to trick you into getting to that point. The other way is to wear down your defenses against feeling those things. And that's largely done in empathy, but objectivity and creativity can help too. And you don't have to be, and it's not good to be mean to yourself. Punishment is not the way to healing. It just isn't. And forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. So what we have to do is to go through a whole process, because being more objective about your life is held back by anxieties of the past, anxieties about the future, keep us from dealing with anxieties from the past. So we have to deal with both. But what is that perspective that sees this past, present, and future, this timeline that our dramatic self is engaged in? What perspective allows us to be self-aware of that struggling hero, struggling against things inside and outside, but always the struggling hero in that timeline? Who sees this? You got to get outside of that timeline. That takes creativity. But communicating with creativity is an important step. With creativity, you can create experiences, and you can see the experiences you're going through. And in that creativity, you've stepped outside of yourself and outside of your experience of time. Mythology connection comes to mind here. In Christianity, there's a song that goes, "When the trumpet of the Lord will sound, and time will be no more, and the morning breaks eternal, bright and fair." Then the saved, the healed, on earth shall gather over on that other shore of enlightenment. Blah. There's something that Pure Land Buddhist monks said once to a group of people who were asking about what's heaven, which they called the Pure Land, the place where it's easy to become enlightened. It's a heaven. So they were asking them, to show them or help them to get to this heaven. And their response was, looking around at the people, "Look around you. This is the Pure Land." So in that moment in which you're connected to that perspective, which is outside of your timeline, outside of that dramatic experience of life, where you are the hero, that perspective, which in yoga is called the witness self, or the param atman, the supreme self. From that perspective, you are in heaven. Why? Because no matter what's going on in that timeline, it's like you watching a movie. All movies, you can enjoy. It's all kinds of movies out there, and you're enjoying the movie with the hero in it, that you identify with to some degree, and you're enjoying that. Reminds me of the saying that the yogis said, everything comes from bliss, everything returns to bliss. So, you remember again in the mythology, the Lord's Prayer, for instance, where on earth as it is in heaven. So this is also a very deep experience. It's kind of reverential toward that creative self in you, which I call the artist. Artist of your life. The part that has to be there for you to feel safe enough to actually relive certain things and to face certain anxieties and transcend them. So in a sense, this artist, your dearest friend, reaches with two arms into your future as objectivity and understanding, into your past as empathy, and that sort of healing of love. And as those arms come together, and those anxieties from the past and the future lessen, you experience a touch of heaven in that embrace. So, even if you're an atheist, you experience in this a sense of a higher power living in you, right? But let's look at it neurologically. What is this creative, amazing, mysterious part of you? It's your brain. Is it the supreme controller, as the yogis call the witness self? Well, it's been shown that the brain is aware of your decision before you're conscious of having made it. Is the brain you? Yes. Is that conscious agency self you? Yes. Are they connected? Are they one? Aham Brahmasmi. In all four Vedas, there's this statement. Two of them, Aham Brahmasmi, means I am that Brahman. I am that witness self. Tatvamasi, that witness self, I am. And are you one with the universe in that sense? Well, yeah, your brain contains all that you conceive of as the universe. And, that universe knowing itself is what the brain is, and everyone shares a brain, every human. And so when some people honor that in another person, they might say namaste. Means that you appreciate and honor that wonderful brain, that human brain in that other person, which is a part of the universe knowing itself. Nothing magical there, nothing supernatural. Just fact. So, yes. On another occasion, perhaps, I might talk about the nonverbal introspection and how that can be helpful and healing, and how it's part of the whole process. But for now, let this be enough. Namaste. I honor and respect that part of you that is the universe knowing itself. The part that we both share.